Hello, everybody. So we are going to be talking about Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy today, right? Which goes into so many different topics. So we're going to try to keep it short, sweet, and to the point, as you guys know I love to do. So Leviticus is really going to focus more on the laws of God. So let's kind of talk about that, okay? So the first one is the laws of sacrifice that we see Leviticus 1 through 7. Having to do with burnt offerings, grain offerings, peace offerings, sin offerings, and guilt offerings. The second are the laws for priests. That's Leviticus 8 through 10, dealing with the ordination of Aaron and his sons and the holiness that's required of priests. The third is clean and unclean laws that happen in Leviticus 11 through 15, which is the clean versus unclean animals, childbirth purification, leprosy and skin diseases, and bodily discharges. Then the fourth one is the Day of Atonement in Leviticus 16, where the high priestess enters the most holy place, sacrifice for national forgiveness. And then the fifth is the law of holiness, which is in Leviticus 17 through 27. We also see moral laws within those passages too, like no adultery, no witchcraft, no sexual immorality, honoring your parents, loving your neighbor as yourself. Okay, all of those things. Then we see priestly holiness as well, which is the standards for priests. We see feast and Sabbaths, like the Passover, unleavened bread, first fruits, the Pentecost, the trumpets, the Day of Atonement, and the tabernacles. Then we see social and economic laws for the oil for the lampstand, Jubilee year, debts forgiven every 50 years, blessings for obedience, and vows and offerings. Then in Dueteronomy, which is the second law, which Moses repeats God's commandments before Israel enters into the promised land. So he repeats the 10 commandments, okay? And that's in Deuteronomy 5, which are, love God with everything. We see that in even Deuteronomy 6. The Shema, which is, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. Then we see the laws of worship in Deuteronomy 12 through 16. No pagan altars, central place of worship, tithes, and festivals repeated. The laws for leaders in Deuteronomy 17, dealing with laws for kings, judges, priests, and prophets. Moral and social laws in Deuteronomy 19 through 25, which is cities of refuge, murder, stealing, adultery, marriage laws, protection of the poor, honest weights and measure, and care for widows, orphans, and strangers. Blessings and curses in Deuteronomy 27, dealing with obedience and how it brings blessings, and disobedience and how it brings curses. The covenant renewal and the prophecy in Deuteronomy 29 through 32, where Moses renews the covenant and warns Israel. Prophecies, and he prophesies over their future and sings the songs of Moses. Now, the main laws that happen in Leviticus, and this is just kind of like a summary. There's sacrificial laws, which are, oh, you know what? We just went over that. Hold on. I'm so sorry, you guys. Okay, and in Numbers, unless you guys wanted me to go back over that, but in Numbers, we've seen the story of the Israelites traveling through the wilderness. Okay, the major events that happened during that time is the census, which was a count of all the tribes for organization and military structure. And then the complaints. Israel complained over and over that they had no water, no meat. The journey was hard. Moses' leadership with God judged their unbelief, but remained faithful. The 12 spies in Kadesh and Barnea, that's in Numbers 13 and 14. 10 spies doubted They doubted. Okay, then you had Joshua and Caleb who believed. The Israel refused to enter the promised land, and God sentenced them to 40 years of wandering. Then we see Korah's rebellion in Numbers 16. Korah rose against Moses. Rebels rose against Moses. God opened the earth and swallowed them. That's tough, right? Moses strikes the rock in Numbers 20. God said, "Speak to the rock." And Moses spoke to it in anger and struck it in anger. And God said Moses could never enter the promised land. Then the bronze serpent in Numbers 21. People complained the snakes bit them. And God told Moses to raise the bronze serpent. And whoever looked lived. Balaam and Balak happened in Numbers 22 to 24, where Balak hired Balaam to curse Israel, and God made Balaam bless Israel instead. Then the victories over the enemies. Israel defeated Sihon, Og, and Medan, and Israel grew strong as a nation. And then in Deuteronomy, Moses' final sermons and transfer to Joshua. Deuteronomy means the second law, by the way, you guys. So Moses reviewed Israel's history, and he reminds them that God saved you. He fed you. He led you. And do not forget him. The greatest commandment in Deuteronomy 6, 4-5. Hear, O Israel, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and strength. The laws repeated. Moses repeats the moral laws, worship laws, holiness laws, justice and mercy, blessings and cursings. Blessings for obedience happened in Deuteronomy 28, 1-14, dealing with prosperity, victory, health, and fruitfulness. Curses of disobedience in Deuteronomy 28, 15-68, diseases, defeat, famine, and exile. Moses warns Israel not to fall into idolatry. Over 50 times he warned them. Do not forget the Lord. Moses chooses Joshua in Deuteronomy 31. God tells Moses Joshua shall lead them. Moses anoints Joshua before the people, and Joshua receives the Spirit, authority, courage, and God's promises. And God's promise was, I will be with you. Then Moses' final blessing happens in Deuteronomy 33, where he blesses every tribe like a father. Moses sees the promised land in Deuteronomy 34. God takes Moses to Mount Nebo, and he shows him the land, and Moses dies, and God buries him. Joshua then becomes the leader. Now, laws about priesthood, callings, and consecration. Only those called by God may serve, right? This is in Exodus 28:1 and Hebrews 5:4, where he says, God chooses Aaron and his sons to be a priest. No man takes this honor unto himself, but that he is called of God. The consecration process happens in Exodus 29 and Leviticus 8, which is washing, anointing, clothing, and sacrifices. Full consecration ceremony, which repeated. The holy garments, which are required. Ephod, the breastplate, the robe, the tunic, the mitre, and the sash. The laws of holiness and purity for priests. The priests must be holy in Leviticus 21:6. They shall be holy unto their God. No uncleanliness while serving. They cannot approach God with uncleanliness. Specific restrictions like no touching the dead, except immediate family. No cutting the skin or shaving, like pagan styles. No alcohol when entering the tabernacle. And must be physically whole to serve. Laws about priest and marriage. Priests must marry wisely. Priests must marry a virgin of his own people, and must be morally clean. And to teach God's laws. There's also other sacrifices, burnt incense, to bless people, to maintain the sanctuary and handle the holy things properly. Laws about tithing, offerings, and provisions for priests as well are things that we see throughout those passages. And that being said, you guys, I hope that kind of helps you guys with the Leviticus and Deuteronomy of the Bible. Just a kind of rundown for you guys. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, I'm always here to talk with you guys and bring some insight. That being said, stay blessed, never stress, with much peace, much power, much love, much light, and of course, much joy.